Welcome, everybody, to the show. Joining us is our illustrious co-host and masked avenger, Dan Noodles man. And our special guest, I did not have a hat ready to participate in this frippery, is Kerry Anderson. Kerry, thanks for joining us this evening from the hinterlands of British Columbia.
Yeah.
So, but pretty hinterlands, I gotta say.
Yeah.
I just want to state that this is the second Canadian in a row. So just to put it out there, that it's not only the smoke getting to you Americans, we're slowly filtering in, man. Slowly.
Man, that's not a new phenomenon. William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy was American. Shatner was Canadian though.
Shatner was Canadian. Yeah. So was Scotty.
Yes, that's
Scotty
true.
Was Canadian.
Yeah, Scotty,
that's why he got shot on Juno Beach.
Yeah, he was part of D-Day. He was an artillery officer.
Mm-hmm.
Learn something all the time, man. Learn something all the time.
I forget what hand it was, but he made an effort to hide the finger he got shot, the missing finger on the show, but you could see it in a couple of scenes.
Look at Mo.
Yeah.
Look at Mo.
Oh, from Most Game Table is here.
He's got to take a shot.
What, you don't like what, I'm not good looking enough for you?
No. He said Dan put the helmet back on. And that's not that. So anyway, Kerry, you've got your own kind of small format war game publishing company. So tell us about that.
Okay, well, you're talking about the Micro Game Design Group.
Indeed, I am.
Though I question the choice of names nowadays. Way back when, back in the 90s, Brian Trade and I, we were talking to each other, and Brian Trade and I were talking to each other. We met through John Kula, and we're all three of us are living in British Columbia, and Brian was an aspiring designer. I'd designed a couple of games. And we thought, wouldn't it be cool to design our own games? I bet you we could do that ourselves. And with computer graphics coming into vogue and whatnot, we just started printing these things, all desktop published stuff. And we started it out. First, it was the micro game co-op, until the government found I was using the term co-op, and they had a whole book of rules associated with running a co-op. So we changed the name. And from that, we proceeded to publish, about 30 or 40 some odd games through the Micro Game Design Group. Actually, a number of people got started. Brian Train, his first game was Shining Path, was published. No, Land of the Free was his first game. Yeah, that was it.
I didn't look Brian up for this. I just looked you up.
Okay, but I mean, Brian and I kind of started that off, and a number of people, Paul Rohrbar got involved, and Hjalmar Gerber, and a number of guys all got started through the MDG.
How did Paul Rohrbar come into picture? He wasn't a Vancouverite.
No. I mean, we started publishing the games. They were all desktop published, so they were printed on 11 by 17 maps. And the counters it was up to you to glue them onto cardboard and make your own counters. And so that way the costs were minimal. I was charging, I don't know, $7 or $8 a game, I think. And they were just selling like hotcakes. And it was, we started off, and the door was basically open to any aspiring designer. Anybody that wanted to try their hand at designing a game could send it in. I would kind of take the work and clean it up, create some decent graphics for it, and edit the rules and whatnot, and publish the game. This gave so there wasn't it was a chance for unknown people to get their game published. And I mean, you could probably go back onto Board Game Geek and look at all the original designers, but we had probably like about 20 designers go through the MDG. I mean, Bruce Costello was another one. Yeah, a number of games. Yes, certainly.
And how
50
did
plus games is what I see. So that's a lot.
Sorry?
and because I'm reading the little blurb you sent me there, that thingy,
Oh yeah.
and in one half a paragraph you run off on an amazing amount of names here: Ben Madsen, Bruce McFarlane,
Yeah.
Peter Drake. Like
Yeah.
you was this like, what are those painters called, the Canadian painters, the something seven there?
Oh, the group of 7.
Yeah, is this what this is? Were all you guys in Vancouver?
No. We're all over the map.
I mean, Paul Rohrbaugh is like 40 minutes from here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Paul's in Ohio. Bruce Costello was in California. I mean, I was actually in Edmonton, Alberta at the time, but and Brian Train was in Victoria, and John Kula as well. There was no. This is the dawn of the internet. Emails were starting to happen, and people could start talking to each other from across the world. It was Consimel was the discussion board.
Mm.
And Consimel was just a discussion board, so there were no web pages, none of that Windows stuff. It was all emails, and it was through that Consimel that we met each other. And go ahead.
The McFarlane guy that's the Spawn guy.
Spawn.
You're talking
Bruce
about Todd McFarlane.
Bruce McFarlane was.
Oh, I'm talking about Todd McFarlane.
By the way, Todd McFarlane is a wargamer. I think I'm getting that right.
No, he is.
I think I'm getting that right.
It's my favorite Frenchie, Fred Serval,
Yeah.
who interviewed Todd McFarlane.
Yeah, and I'm like, Fred.
Who's the guy at CBC? Eric Grenier. CBC News. He's a gamer. He designed a bunch of games and was publishing his own back in the 90s. Yeah. He's another gamer.
I mean, and back then, how did you distribute all your games? I mean, and was there a living to be made?
Well, that's yeah, right. It was pretty much cost recovery back in those days. Like I was, again, all this was just taking it to the local printer, and it was just color laser printing, and then I'd slap them all together and stick it into a comic book bag, and mail it out. Of course, that went. I ran that for about a dozen or more years, and I kind of ran out of steam, and so I decided to go back to school and finish off and get a PhD. And at that time, I decided to close the MVG, but still, the bug was there. I couldn't let it sit. So after about 4 or 5 years, I resurrected it again and limited it pretty much to my own designs. And around this time, I bought an Ellison die cutting machine. So I was able to make my own counters. That was always the beef that people had with the desktop publishing was, all the unmounted counters. So I was able to make my games and with die cut counters. And I'm still selling them. I had to take a little bit of a hiatus for the last couple months because of family matters there. My parents were not doing well, but anyway, we won't get into that. But we're back. It's back up on the system's back and running now. So we're happy to get that going again.
You're still running that SPI Wrecking?
Yeah, the Wrecking Yard's still going as well. The Wrecking Yard again, about the same sort of time was me just I grew up buying and collecting SPI games, and just like a mother hen wanting to kind of bring in all the brood there, I was buying these games at thrift stores and off of eBay and whatnot, and I just ended up with a mishmash of parts and stuff that I decided, I'll just try to make new games, and those I had parts for. I'd make the parts available, and yeah, it's just a wrecking yard of old SPI parts.
So
games.
you still do that? Like, I mean, you create new counters for old SPI games?
Well, that's another half. Yeah, I did that for a number of years, but actually, I've certainly redesigned counters for practically most of the SPI games and a lot of the old original Avalon Hill games. But I have to admit, I had to step away from that because it was just taking over my life. Because it was an awful lot of, it was fun to draw them up. It was fun to make them. But when you start to get 200 games, it's impossible to have an inventory. And invariably, I'd be running back and forth to the print shop, printing something because somebody would order a game I didn't have a copy of. And yeah, it was just taking over my life. So I had to step back from that. Yeah,
It's a lot of work, man.
Yeah, it was a lot of work, and it was but it was a lot of joy to do that. Artie, you look like you're chomping at the bit to say something important.
I'm doing research here.
I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing, man.
So, well, I mean, so you're actively working with at least a couple of other publishers to publish your designs as well, and some of those are, let's say, at least a little bigger than what might typically get expected from Micro Game Design Group, right?
Well, let me rewind a little bit. As I said, the Micro Game Design Group, the name fit it back in the desktop publishing days. But now that I'm publishing my own games, Micro Game is not really a fair description of what they are. I mean, some of these games that I'm publishing, they're more like folio size, but still, they'll take 4 or 6 hours to play. Oh, here they come. What are you bringing out?
Mm-hmm.
I got a bunch.
Man's busting it out.
Okay, he's busting them out. Okay. I mean, some of the games, certainly Smoke Jumpers, which is a game on wildland forest firefighting. Yeah, that's a micro game.
And aren't you a forest fighter, something genius, intellect, something?
Exactly. Yeah. I'm retired, semi-retired. Research scientist. I've studied forest fires as my career, modeling forest fires, and currently I retired from one job with Natural Resources Canada, but I was picked up by Environment Canada, and now I'm modeling smoke, as you can see from the picture on the wall. So all this smoke coming from fires in Quebec, flooding over and impacting air quality. And yes, I still sell SPR vintage parts. Yes, all that smoke billowing in from Quebec and Ontario. We're modeling that stuff, Well,
I mean, I could have saved you a lot of years and a lot of money. I would have said, yes, student Kerry. Yeah, the wind blows that way, the fire goes that way. Blows the other way, the fire goes the other way. Here's your degree.
Yeah, well, there you go. Okay, you got it figured out. Hey, you're
hired. Got a whole mathematical model in his head for that right now.
Well, in a way,
it's not the same kind of smoke you see in the forest fire. If you know what I'm saying.
Oh, there's another classic there. Oh, is that the original version, the Hex Encounter version?
Hold on a second.
That's what I assume it is. I've seen the Compass version.
The Compass Games version is 3 years ago, actually not.
No, I think this is the. Hold on a second. I got a lot of cards.
Yeah, I think you got the original 1990 something version. I designed. Yeah, that's the original version. I designed that back in the 90s, and then what happened was. I was walking through the mall, and I walk into a game store, and I'm looking up and down thinking, are there any classic war games here? No. But on the other hand, there was like Risk 2010, and there's like Memoir 44, and there's all these games with lots of plastic pieces and dice. And I decided, I should try to do one of those games. But what topic am I going to pick? I don't know. I know, the Battle of Armageddon. So I took that original design, which you're holding in your hand there, Dan, and turned it into more of an Axis and Allies like game. Admittedly, Compass chose not to go with plastic pieces. Understandably, that's it's a lot extra to publish, but still, there's like 100+ cards, and there's dice with little figures of tanks and infantrymen and planes and stuff like that. That you just roll the dice, and it is such a crazy game.
Besides, the original Axis and Allies had counters anyway, so.
Yes, the old Nova game. Yes, Barnard Star. There's another old one. Yeah, there's a story behind that one a minute ago too.
Oh well, please.
Oh, okay. Back in the 80s, I desperately wanted GDW to publish a game of mine. I wanted to get a game published by GDW because they were my favorite company. I'm talking like I'm 20 years old. Well, a buddy of mine and I were playing Imperium, the old conflict game Imperium, and we had this big battle over Barnard Star. So I had this idea of, well, I'll turn this into a ground battle game. And I sent it in, and they looked hard at it, but they said it doesn't quite fit the Series 120 format because it took more than 120 minutes to play, unfortunately. But they were pretty close to publishing it. Later on, back in the earliest days of the internet, and I'm just learning graphics, I created a series of PDF files, and Barnard Star, I turned it into a free downloadable game that if you scour through the web, you can probably find it and read the rules and have a go at it. The graphics are pretty crude compared to what you've got in your hands there, Dan. But that was another experiment of mine, and back in 1990 or so. Oh, Solar Marine. Oh, there's a great one. That is that's kind of squad leader in space.
Nothing wrong with that. So you mentioned that your favorite company was GDW, and I've got some. I don't know that I could say that at any point personally, but I do have some friends that's definitely the case with.
Yeah.
So what was it about? What was the magic of GDW to you?
I don't know.
Were they just really getting right?
That's a really good question. I think, I think SPI was certainly, it was like the Rolling Stones of wargaming, but here's GDW off to the side doing some really quirky little things. I remember playing Triplanetary. I had a gas plague. I didn't understand the physics of what was going on. My 14-year-old mind couldn't wrap my head around it. Yeah.
Fancy new edition, finally.
Yeah.
Only took 20 years or 30, whatever it was, to get that done.
And there were a number of other games that Frank Chadwick was just such a creative guy. Probably my favorite game of all time will continue to be the original Fall of Tobruk. I don't know, that's a real obscure game, maybe. But the Fall of Tobruk, it had this, it was like 3 pages of rules. Yet in those 3 pages of rules, Frank Chadwick just did this amazing job of capturing, tank battles in North Africa. It was an amazing game to play. I know Chris Fawcett. Huh?
What's the game called again?
Fall of Tobruk.
Fall of Tobruk. Was it Compass Games? Compass Games redesigned the game and re-released it. Chris Fawcett gets credit for that, I believe. Personally, I haven't seen it, but I think he stepped down 1 notch in scale. So whatever it was, a couple 100 counters turned into 800 counters or something like that, and that's not quite my area. I prefer to play a game in an afternoon rather than playing it for a week.
So a great question here was: did you try to pitch anything else to GDW?
Well, on and off, I tried, but rather unsuccessfully. That's okay. I was this greasy haired 19, 20-year-old kid just kind of slapping stuff together.
And who were the main designers at GW at that time?
Oh, it was Frank Chadwick, Mark Miller. Those were the two guys primarily.
Okay.
Yeah, Rich Banner and John Harshman did a lot.
Yeah.
Lauren Wiseman did a lot.
Yeah. 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 Around that time, I did Vimy Rich too. I was hoping GW might pick that up, but again, that didn't quite gel. Back in those days, it was to sell a game to a company was a non-trivial endeavor. I mean, you really had to. It was like getting a book published. You had to send it out to dozens of people, and get used to rejection letters, and I got a lot of rejection letters. Some were very polite. Some were kind of like don't call us, we'll call you. Yeah, I even sent in the original version of Clavius. I sent to Avalon Hill. Yes, Clavius, yes. And I think for a lark, they gave it to Alan Moon to review. I think those guys, they did that on purpose, probably. Not because it was a game that was worthy of being published by Avalon Hill per se, but they just thought it'd be a joke to give it to Alan Moon to review.
So he reviewed it in the general?
Huh?
He reviewed it in the general?
No. When I submitted the game, they were willing to look at it.
Oh, I see. Okay, I thought he reviewed it on print. Okay.
No, my apologies. When I meant review, I mean just to decide whether to publish it or not.
So would you say that
rather polite rejection letter, but still.
Would you say that situation where if you're a designer who has no interest in like setting up your own self-publishing, let's call it, would you say that situation is different now than it was back in, say, the 70s and 80s?
I think it's a lot easier to get games published now, yes. But if I may kind of come full circle back to the MDG, a lot of this was the motivation, especially for myself, Brian Train as well, to publish our own games because we got tired of getting rejection letters. And also the few games that I did get published, the publisher would often kind of take the basic idea and flip it inside out and put their own spin on it. And all of a sudden it's like a radically different game now. I know that Clavius, when Task Force Games bought it or picked it up, they decided to change the combat system to something they wanted. And also they changed it from a move fight to a fight move system that ended up, the game didn't work anymore.
That's a significant change, I was going to say.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, it was all you had to do was set up a line and retreat 2 hexes a turn, and you're guaranteed a win. I don't know what they were thinking. They really screwed it up. So all I'm saying is where this is going is through the MDG, we would publish games basically as is. You send me your game. I'll give it a sugarcoat it and do some good graphics that you approve of, and do my best job of it. Edit the rules and stuff, but it's still your game, and it's the way you wanted it to be published. So and also we were willing to take anybody and everybody that sent in a game. So all these guys like I use Brian's name quite often. He's a recognized guy. But Paul Rohrbar, he was unpublished, but it was through the MDG that his games got published. Same thing with a number of these other guys. These are all first-timers. Bruce Costello sent me Victory in Vietnam, which was, Bruce is no longer with us, but I don't want to sound disrespectful or anything, but that was a mess of a game. I had to untangle that. And he wasn't too happy with the way I did it, but that's another story. That's
So we
what
do
I
have
was.
another great
Why did I go
question
there?
from
Anyway.
another fellow Canadian here. We know that I actually did sort of a walkthrough of Revolution Games product line on the Monday stream, and your game Death of an Army that was published through them came up, and that's, I believe, the 1914 First Ypres battle. Do
Yes.
you intend to tackle the other two battles?
I've done the second Battle of Ypres already. Actually, the Death of an Army, Ypres 1914, was originally published by the MDG
I noticed that.
as Ypres 1914, Death of an Army. So they flipped the names around. But anyway, that's certainly a good one. I've always been very interested in World War One. I've done Canadians, World War One it hits more to heart than Second World War and whatnot. Every Remembrance Day, you're up there, in Flanders Fields.
Yeah.
It's a very important part, and I was also very interested in the Western Front. So I've done a number of Western Front games, including Death of an Army as the first Battle of Ypres. Before that, I did Ypres 1915, which was picked up by Critical Hit. That's another story. And they renamed it In Flanders Fields, but that's the second Battle of Ypres, where the Germans released the first gas cloud on the first the French divisions, that territorial and Algerian divisions that just ran. But a few days later, the Canadians got gassed, and all these dumb Canadian farmers decided to stick around and fight the Germans still, even though they were being gassed. So it's a very famous battle for the Canadian perspective. 1917. I've thought very hard, and I want to try to do a Passchendaele game, but it is the epitome of
World War One bloodbath.
Yes. To design a game on that topic would be a real challenge, but it's always been perking away in the back of my mind. Lys, which would be the fourth Battle of Ypres. I might get to it, but haven't really given it too much attention. And the advance in Flanders, you mean the last 100 days? Not familiar with that part. Canadians certainly were part of Cambrai in 1918, retaking Cambrai in the last 100 days. But that might be a possibility. Right now, my intention is to take the Death of an Army system and apply it to other battles in World War One. Picking the right scale is a bit of a challenge, but I've been working on a Cambrai 1917 game, so that's close to completion, but I've been distracted with a few too many other things that I haven't been able to finish it up.
And will all these ideas be on Revolution's publishing?
Well, yeah, I'll I've certainly have a good rapport with Roger, and we'll probably, we'll see what happens when the game's done. I think it's quite a promising game. But as a buddy of mine was kind of, when he and I played it, he was kind of a little bit concerned about the counter clutter with all the markers, which kind of set me back a couple of steps. Maybe I'm throwing a bit too much in there. I'll do a reassessment and see if I can streamline a few things. But there's a lot to capture in First World War battles. It's not just a bunch of one-to-one attacks on trench lines.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
And have you ever seen that movie done by the Canadian guy on Passchendaele?
Oh, yeah, certainly the Passchendaele. I forgot that actor's name. Yes, I've seen it.
I forgot. No, you've never seen it?
I have, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Paul. What is it? Paul somebody or other.
Paul.
That was about 10 years ago. It was a, it's a melodramatic movie.
Yeah.
But still, it was entertaining.
Yeah.
World War I movies, I always think of the 1930 version of All Quiet on the Western Front. That movie has always amazed me.
Yeah.
And Kirk Douglas and Kubrick's
Paths of Glory.
Mm-hmm.
Paths of Glory, right?
Which
That's another
shockingly I have never seen, actually.
Man,
What?
I obviously got to fix that
What?
point.
that's actually very brutal. It's
I
brutal.
think that's, other than like the first couple early ones that Kubrick did, I think I've seen every other Kubrick film, actually.
Oh yeah.
So I haven't seen Barry Lyndon.
I've never seen
Tell
Barry
Dan to
Lyndon.
watch.
Oh,
I've never seen Barry Lyndon.
That's great. That's terrific.
yeah.
I can't wait to see it.
Yeah.
Well, get on that then.
Long movie.
Yeah.
But, it's worth it, definitely. I've always been a Kubrick fan.
So, Kerry, are you having more fun now designing games with all that experience you have, or are you a little bit jaded?
Jaded?
Does anybody like say to themselves, you know, I'm really jaded today?
No, what I'm saying.
I'm not sure that's
I mean,
a moment that comes to you in self-reflection.
Are you fed up, man? Are you fed up?
Oh no, I'm not fed up, hardly. I'm just admittedly I'm a bit distracted with a few other kind of family matters here. You know, my dealing with aging parents is distracting me right now. But it will continue to be a passion of mine to keep on designing games. I don't, it kind of comes and goes, but publishing through the MDG also, I've really enjoyed doing that because I'm in control. It's 100% me. Although we pass the game on to the next publisher, and I respect the fact that they're putting out tens of thousands of dollars publishing a game, so they're the ones putting money on the table, so they get to make the final decision. I understand that, but it's a lot easier for me to do it my way. Think of me as the musician playing in the local coffee shop, doing his favorite tunes, as opposed to the rock band playing 3 chords. Yeah, that's just the way I am. So, and actually, I'm enjoying it.
Is there a topic that you think is underexplored that you think other designers, or maybe you someday, should get on? That there's a rich vein of material somewhere that's just waiting to be tapped. I mean, World War I is a little bit of that, but in the last 10, 15 years or so, we have seen a big spike in World War I games, it seems to me.
I'm careful saying these things. I guess I'm a bit of I don't want to say I'm a snob. I tend not to buy new games. I'm afraid to say I'm so hooked on the 70s and 80s. I've got all my SPI games that I'm just passionate about. But when I see all the new games coming out by Compass and GMT, it's just kind of like, oh man, I just can only pick up 1 or 2 of those. There's probably a lot of World War I games, and I'm kind of a little bit cautious about picking those up because I don't want to be seen as stealing ideas from somebody else. So, I tend to focus on designing the games I want to design and the way I want them designed. And I guess in a way, they have a lot of 70s feel to them. I don't have a lot of chit pulling or card play or anything like that. They're really kind of good old fashioned push the counters around and roll on the 3-to-1 column,
but a lot of extra. Every artist borrows. They don't steal, they borrow.
Yeah, I know. Well, I try to be as close to the way I want the games designed. That's just the way I do things. Another thing is, I guess, if I may, is my background is in science, and I model forest fires, and in a very similar way, designing a game is like developing a scientific model because you're trying to simulate something. At work, I would simulate how a forest fire spreads across the landscape, or how a smoke plume will disperse downwind. As a war game designer, I would try to model how the battle would evolve. and oh, thank you. Yes. So in a very real way, they're very similar. My career and my hobby have a chance to overlap. So I'm not too sure if very many people have that opportunity. Maybe
I
I'm
mean, that
talking.
makes complete sense to me. I mean, I'm not.
Yeah,
I don't really have a science background, but I took some right at
yeah.
college level, and
Oh,
it's it's always seemed to me to be an exercise in historical modeling, right? I
yeah.
mean, that's kind of the war game approach to things, as opposed to, hey, I got this cool idea for a new mechanic. We're gonna try and find a game that it fits in.
Yeah, that's where I get a little bit nervous. It's kind of like yeah, it's this is the I mean the I go you go approach to wargaming is maybe old fashioned, but on the other hand, it works. It's
Still,
yeah, you can throw in cards and chit pulling and all that stuff and all that in my humble opinion is just clutter. And I don't think it really adds anything to the simulation. What you're trying to simulate. I mean, I think I was watching one of your previous shows there with Dick Whitaker. You were talking about chit pulling, and it kind of captures some of the command control aspects. Yeah, okay, yeah, I can buy that. Yeah, anyway, old
Kerry,
school.
what about something like Opportunity Fire?
Oh, Opportunity Fire certainly plays a role in tactical games. Yeah.
But the
Mhm.
I go you go
But I
thing,
mean,
well, I mean, it's never absolute. Well, I mean, sometimes it is, I guess, but it's a lot of times it's still an I go you go game, and we say
but
ASL is an I go you go game, but it's still there's interactive phases in
right?
it where the
Okay,
other player gets to go.
Opportunity Fire goes back to like Sniper and
right. Okay,
Calf Panzer and all that stuff in the 70s. It's nothing new.
Was there something in the 70s and maybe the 80s in the games that we saw back then that we're missing today in more current designs?
Yeah, I'm just kind of I would perhaps say, and I'm stepping on thin ice here because I don't really play very many modern games. I just think that a lot of the modern games are just throwing in innovation and new ideas and game and tricks just to be novel, and doesn't necessarily have anything to do as a simulation value. But that's just my gut feeling. Like all these cards. I mean, I remember. I'm going to get into trouble here. Playing Twilight Struggle.
We never have that happen here.
Playing Twilight Struggle. I just could not wrap my head around. Here I am being Ronald Reagan, and somehow I'm able to cause the Chernobyl accident by playing a card. How is that reality? I'm sorry. Twilight Struggle is one of the most successful war games in the hobby. I mean, don't get me wrong, but I could not wrap my head around that. Or playing another game, the Ted Racer's what's his great work, Paths of Glory.
Paths of Glory.
Yeah, all these cards going on, and it's kind of like you're almost. We're playing 1914, and it's almost like I was straitjacketed into following this specific Schlieffen plan attack. There was no. Anyway, sorry.
No logic to it.
Well, it's
logic to it, but I think I see where you're going with this, because there's a decision space in a game like that and those are two examples, right, where a designer often wants to try to put the player in a decision space of the person who was there at the time, right? And there's no decision space where the American player can cause Chernobyl to blow up, right? We did not do that. So and that can feel alien You know what I'm saying? They feel
Yeah.
foreign in the sense that this is not, I'm kind of trying to put myself in this world leader scenario, but I wouldn't have any control over that stuff. So I mean, I totally see where you're coming from on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's the scientist side of me. I'm
Now
trying to
that said, I like Paths of
trying to
Glory a lot, but
simulate
it
something
it is what it is, right?
as opposed to entertain. But I mean, the flip side of it is yeah, I mean, the Compass game version of Armageddon, that's got nothing to do with reality. I mean, that's
Well, it's Armageddon too. So I mean, what are people going to actually? I should ask. Do you get angry letters about having portrayed the future reality of the Battle of Armageddon incorrectly?
yeah,
About that?
yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. No, not really.
Good, good,
Uh,
good.
back when GMT had it on their P500 list, there was a lot of uh, angst. How dare GMT publish a game on this subject? You saw though on Board Game Geek these comments coming in,
You're
and
talking about Armageddon.
huh?
You're talking about Armageddon.
Yeah. On the other hand, I brought the game to Tempe to Concert World, and everybody, I didn't get any complaints. I would literally have born again Christians playing against atheists, and they're both having a great old time. It's just a game. I wasn't preaching anything. I wasn't mocking anyone. It was just a topic for a game that was unusual.
Well, how do we assess a game's simulation value? Is that something that we can at least roughly quantify and say it's a class A, B, or C as a simulation? Is there what are the things that we look at when we're making that determination?
Well, I mean, first off is being able to repeat history. That's primary. What you need to do when you're designing a game. Trying to capture the decisions, the struggles that the commanders were faced with. I mean, that's another component in design, and certainly, I guess the physical restrictions of whether it's troops or terrain or whatever. All these are all factors involved in you have to consider in design. Maybe it's obvious for me, but maybe less so. And the internet's great for reaching wires. Yeah, good.
This is an observed phenomenon. Let me put it that way. We talked a little bit about this actually before the show started, but go ahead and tell the story of how you got into wargaming in the first place. Jeff Beeler is asking, and he is a fellow Canadian and demands answers.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah. How did I get into gaming? Well, certainly I was a kid that liked to play Risk and Stratego a lot. When a buddy of mine, I was probably about 13, he came back with a copy of Blitzkrieg. And that just blew my mind. I just like all these cardboard pieces and this map the size of a living room, it seemed like. And what is this thing? This little piece that had a picture of a TV set with two antennas. What is that? That's a tank division? What? Oh, and I'm just moving around and fumbling around, but we had a blast playing that. I played that to death. It was only later that he didn't get he still somehow lost the catalog. So I had no idea that Avalon Hill had a whole slew of games.
By then, yeah, a decent number.
When I went to the local variety mart, here was Africa Corps. Oh, cool. So I picked up a copy of Africa Corps, and my an uncle of mine had fought with the British 8th Army. So he and I talked about it a bit, so it was a real connection with him too. But I started playing that to death. Africa Corps was the greatest game. Then I bought Panzer Blitz. It was just, and things just cascaded from there. Eventually, I subscribed to S&T, and wow.
Now you said your first SPI game was Combined Arms.
Yes, issue 46. Oh man, I tried so hard to like that game, but it was such a turkey, honestly. But
It's not what anybody is scrambling to reprint nowadays. I can tell you that.
No. I mean, all these generic counters in this, it was an awful game actually. But the next game was Wolfpack, which that was cool. And of course, Wolfpack had an advertisement for World War III, and of course, I had to order that. And oh man, I was hook, line, and sinker. They had me, and I was buying all sorts of SPI games after that.
Now, with the caveat that my opinions on people ask me stuff all the time, like what's a good game? What's my opinion on this or that? My opinion changes all the time. So today in 2023, what would you say is your favorite SPI game to like just bust out and play nowadays?
Oh, that's a good question. Russian Civil War is a
very interesting
play. Sniper, I've always enjoyed Sniper, although I've kind of concocted my own workaround so I don't do the psi move. We had a blast playing that at Tempe one day. and Jason Pipes and I we're just reenacting. We're reacting the scene from Saving Private Ryan. There, the Germans, they're duking it out in the room there, and the guys with the knives. We're having a hand-to-hand fight.
That's a brutal.
I've never played that one. That is man-to-man.
Sorry, no, that was from Sniper.
Yeah, no, but that's like it's an individual unit, right?
It's a man-to-man game. But back in those days, they had a system of writing down your moves, so it was a psi move. So you have a bunch of guys all of a sudden running past each other and then running back. It was kind of a little bit goofy in that sense. But I just came up with a system of you roll a die, and I rolled a 3, so I can move 3 of my guys. Now it's your turn. You roll a 4, I can move 4 of my guys, or shoot. And all of a sudden the simultaneity kind of was recaptured. It was quite fun.
It's almost like they were experimenting back in the day.
Yeah, well,
sometimes they landed and sometimes they didn't.
Well, Sniper was one of their best sellers.
Well, it doesn't go for very much, man. You can get it for $25.
It's probably because they printed a lot of them. That's a factor, right? That's why nobody should pay $50 for Panzer Blitz anymore.
Yeah,
even today.
Yeah,
but Kerry, going back to the Battle of Armageddon, the GMT, and the people commenting on the people, you got a lot of flack because of the religious aspect of it. Is that what it was?
No. Well, okay, let's go through this again. I decided to submit it to not that version. This version.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one that got flack?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the point was, before it was published, I did my own version of it. I printed about 20 copies, limited edition, 20 copies. But I put all this effort into making is the best version of the game I could. I had a box and I had mounted map and my die cut counters and stuff. But whatever, 20 copies doesn't sell a lot. But I was able to interest GMT, so they put it on their P500. When it was on the P500, that's when people started reacting and saying, "How dare GMT publish a game on this topic?" And I could, I'm not too sure how you'd find that, but on Board Game Geek, if you drill into the Battle of Armageddon, maybe an earlier.
Now I'm curious because that seems overly passionate, perhaps.
Yeah, it was quite. There was quite a few people reacting to this, but regardless of that, as I said, the people at Tempe, they were having fun. Everybody was enjoying the game, but the reality was there was a P500. There was a big rush of about 100, 150 people that wanted the game, and then it just kind of petered off. It just kind of stopped, and so I kind of I pulled Gene aside one day and said, this isn't going to work, is it? And so I pulled the game from P500, and shortly afterwards, Compass approached me and expressed an interest in publishing it. So that's kind of the way it went. And
they sold 20,000 copies.
Yeah, not 20,000, but a few thousand, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, they. I don't know if it's sold out or not, but
no, I don't think it's. No, I don't think it's sold out yet.
But what were the people miffed about the subject? I mean, it's happening today. It's happening today. The subject.
Well, I don't know.
Possibly not with quite the same context, but
I mean,
So let's. I guess for those who haven't looked at it, and I actually have. Tell us what exactly the Armageddon in the Battle for Armageddon is.
Okay, well, very, very quickly, what the topic of the game is about is it portrays the Battle of Armageddon as interpreted by a lot of the evangelical Christian community. So if you can imagine people that like the late great Planet Earth by Hal Lindsey, this Left Behind series by whoever wrote that. There's a large Christian community that is very that's have very strong beliefs about the idea that there's going to be a rapture, and then everybody's going to be there. The Antichrist is going to show up, and then there's going to be this big battle at the end. And it's only God coming down that saves the day.
And there are, of course, simulation mechanics for all this. So you get the vacuum cleaner and you vacuum up the pieces, and those are the raptured pieces.
Well, no, I don't.
That's not in the game.
Again, I'm being fair and honest here. It's not a game that promotes any religious storyline, nor is it anything that mocks these people, this belief system.
I didn't take it that way.
No. I understand. I've been walking this tightrope ever since for a long time.
I find it a very weird tightrope to be on. Let me put it that way for this.
Yeah.
I mean, if people bought the Left Behind books, I mean, what's the problem?
Oh yeah. There are people that are very strong believers in this, and at the same time,
that's fine. Free country, right?
And at the same time, there's the atheist group is kind of like, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. But they'll sit down and push around counters and play nuclear weapons cards and just blow everybody up to Kingdom Come, and it's a blast.
Kind of the point, right?
It's
the Armageddon, right?
This is it. I mean, and it comes down to when the seventh seal card is drawn and Christ come down from the sky, the game's over. And whoever owns Jerusalem at the end of the game, well, everybody really loses. But whoever owns Jerusalem wins the game. That's
in the errata. You all actually lose. Doesn't matter what happens. So, I've heard good things about the art of Siege, and Siege of Constantinople is one of the sort of the fifth wheel in that particular bunch. So. But Armada is well known to have some problems. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, no, Siege of Constantinople and Armada never quite captured my interest. But as far as S&T games goes, I certainly played Panzer Group Guderian and Crusades and Cobra, and I mean there were a lot of great games back in the old S&Ts.
I think that Crusades game actually holds up pretty well, and Cobra certainly does.
Battle for Germany, World War I. I remember feeling kind of ripped off when here I had all these big games like Combined Arms and Wolfpack and Sixth Fleet and Frederick the Great, and then all of a sudden they cut the size in half and only give you 100 counters. With Battle for Germany, I felt ripped off. But little did I know that was probably one of the best S&T games ever published.
It remains in print today.
Oh, it does, and I'll pull that out and play that quite often with people. That's a lot of fun, especially the 3-player version.
Hmm.
Yeah, and yeah, World War One. I mean, there were Revolt in the East. I mean, those were even those small little games were a lot of fun to play. Breitenfeld, yeah.
Hmm. And
Um,
there's like really a sweet spot there, probably
there
too,
was,
in terms of size and playtime and all that stuff. Where
yeah,
mostly those things took a few hours to play, but not a few days, right? And I
yeah,
think for a lot of people, and I say this as somebody that plays a lot of big games and has been playing the same big game for the last 7 months, um, that appeals to a lot of people, right?
yeah,
That's a good sweet spot to be in for game size wise for a lot of people.
yeah.
And that's kind of one of the advantages. There are disadvantages to go along with the magazine format on a magazine publishing schedule, of course, as we have seen over the course of the lifetime of SPI, regardless of who the publisher was. But some of those things.
I've just opened up the comments. I'm afraid
Yes.
I haven't read them, but Jeff Beeler asks about Live Free or Die.
Yeah.
I had a blast designing that game. Yeah, it was the crowd I hung out with at in Tempe, the Black Dogs would play all these alt history games. So I wanted to come up with an alt history game for them to play. And Invasion America was a topic, so I thought I'd create 3 little battles from Invasion America, and just to make it kind of, I just kind of spun it like the communists were invading. I didn't stick with the original SPI dialogue, but it was a lot of fun. I had a hoot playing that. I kind of alt history. I can communists and Americans. I have no problem with. I like it. I like a lot of Cold War games. But I kind of draw the line when we start talking about alt history with Nazis or with Confederates. I'm not comfortable with that. So, but
Well,
that's
we've seen plenty of those.
Yeah, there's enough.
So
Thank you very much. But Invasion America, that was a hoot to design. Yes.
So why is this not working?
Or sorry, I meant Live Free or Die.
Live Free or Die.
I thought I'd try to do an Invasion of Russia version of that, kind of like Objective Moscow.
Yeah,
Like
I was going to say SPI did that. They turned Invasion America around and did Objective Moscow too.
Yeah, I thought of trying to do that, but I haven't quite done that yet.
Have you played Objective Moscow?
Oh, of course, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's one I haven't. It's and it's hard to get now. It's an expensive game to buy on the secondary market.
No, I mean, well, come on out to Tempe and the alt history guys. They play it every other year, probably.
Well, yeah, if I could get, it's Ohio to Tempe is a big ask, right?
Oh, okay.
I finally, after many years of trying and failing for a variety of different reasons every year, managed to get out to WBC for an afternoon this year. So little baby steps.
Well, I'm not getting out to the East Coast to any conventions, so.
Oh, I'd imagine not. What do you fly to Phoenix? I assume from where you're at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I am. I'll fly from Kelowna, which is close to where I live. I'll fly that to Calgary and then connect down to Phoenix. I see Alan Salazar is asking what topics. I mean, if you look at the MDG, you'll see that it falls into 3 basic camps. I do Cold War games, I do World War I games, and I do science fiction games.
That's what I saw.
Yeah. Just like I talked earlier about World War I capturing my interest growing up in the 70s and the 80s with Ronald Reagan and the threat of nuclear war. I mean, it was always on the back of my mind. I ended up looking at situations where that was a possibility, and I ended up doing games on. MacArthur's War is a Korean War, but with the possibility of expanding into Asia. And Cuban Missile Crisis. That's another one, and NATO 1961 when the Berlin Wall came up. That was actually quite a close. That was a particularly dangerous event. And They all have escalation ladders based upon some of the theories of Herman Kahn and whatnot. So they're real fascinating games to play too.
How do you research an alt history game? I mean, you find a book on the topic
research
and work on that.
It does make
that's the question, right? You can't just read a history book.
I mean, what? When I did Live Free or Die, that was just basically, kind of concocting a crazy scenario where the communists were invading continental U.S.
So research was watching Red Dawn, pretty much.
Yeah,
Okay.
Wolverines, yeah.
Wolverine.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
So still a well-remembered movie today.
Yes, Berlin 61 has a Canadian unit in it. Absolutely.
Jeff is very, very interested in games containing Canadians, as well as games by Canadians, which are all assumed sight unseen to include Canadians somehow.
Yes, well, that's why I did a game on Vimy Ridge, and I did a game on the Second Battle of Ypres. And I guess there's Canadians in Berlin 61 as well. And I used the proper Canadian flag, the red ensign for the period too. So I remembered.
Mm-hmm. I've gotten that wrong before.
Yeah.
So folks, we are out of time. I'd like to thank Dan for coming by and being his usual charming helmeted self. And I'd like to especially thank our special guest, Kerry Anderson. Kerry, thanks for taking the time with us.
Pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Kerry, don't split, Kerry.
Yes, boss.
Everybody have a great night.
Big move. Big win. The moose is loose. Big moves. Big win. The moose is loose. Big moves. Big win. The moose is loose. Big.